we finally have a video of the S-500. Russia has been talking about it for years. It's been said that it's been in testing for years. In 2012, it was reported that it would be made operational the next year, 2013. I made a video on it over 3 years ago now, but until now, not a single image of it was ever released, let alone a video. The system has been said to have near godlike ability and able to shoot down anything and everything, from ballistic missiles to hypersonic weapons to the latest stealth aircraft. There is endless over-the-top clickbait videos too. Reading and watching these seems to give the impression that this thing is basically God, the be-all end-all. A Russian Air Force commander, Alexander Zelin, even said that the S-500 air defense system is a system that will solve all of Russia's missile defense problems. How much of this is true? Do you have a neighbor that's always bothering you? Are they constantly threatening you with a ballistic missile strike? Do you need... Commando store doesn't currently have any in stock, but they do offer carefully graded military surplus that is functional, field-tested, and available in its native sizes. They also commission reproductions of gear that is no longer available, like the West German Polizei bomber jacket, the South African waxy boot, the Pattern 83 chest rig, and an assortment of all other cultural artifacts and accessories to match. With this kind of classical surplus drying up worldwide, Commando Store makes it a core objective to preserve the historical value and cultural significance of these era-defining artifacts, and to offer them at a higher quality level than the average dusty surplus warehouse. They always have new items coming in, so go, sign up for their mailing list. You'll get a few emails a month, often humorous, keeping you informed with the newest gear in stock. So go, check them out. Again, sign up for their mailing list. With it, you'll get 10% off your first order. Check the link down in the description below for directions on how to sign up. You don't have to walk into another Army-Navy surplus store just to spend hours digging through junk. Visit commandostore.com. As I said, I made a video on the system a few years ago. I'll link it up in the top right here if you want to see it, but I'll try not to repeat too much of that same information. The real interesting part here is that now that we finally have a video of the system, there's a lot more information that we can extrapolate. First, it's huge. The truck carrying it appears to be the BAZ-6909 a larger 10-wheeled variant of the BAZ-6909 used for the S-400. As I said in the last video, each TEL, or Transport Erector Launcher, will only carry 2 missiles. As for the particular missiles that they will carry, looking closely at the video, the missile appears to be similar to the S-300V's 9M82 and the now retired 51T6 that was part of the A-135 ABM system that was protecting Moscow. However, it's larger than the 9M82 and smaller than the 51T6. The name of one of the missiles that it will carry is the 77N6-N, and this is likely the missile that we see firing here. Unfortunately, it's hard to tell, as you can see that they went out of their way to blur the close-up video of it launching to hide it. One of the things we are not seeing in the video though are any of the radars, and the radars are one of the most important parts. When people again mention that this thing can shoot down F-35s and B-2s or anything else, well, we know that the missile has the range and a warhead that can do that, but the real limiting factor would be if its radar could spot these threats and then guide a missile to them. Since they don't show the radars, and since little technical information has been released, most of this is a guess. But radars are likely to include modifications of existing radars. A modification of the 91N6 or the 96L6 for the search radar, then a 76T6 or a 77T6 engagement radar, likely based on the 92N6 radar. So then this brings up the question, just how good will this thing be? What can it actually do? Can it shoot down an F-35 and longer range ballistic missiles? Well, being able to do both is difficult. The issue is, there's a point where you are sacrificing some capability to enable it to do multiple things. Ballistic missile interceptors require different attributes than surface-to-air missiles designed to shoot down aircraft. One example is the warhead. Blast fragmentation warheads work great against aircraft and other cruise missiles, as they are extremely delicate. Aircraft need so many parts working perfectly in order for it to fly and remain airborne. Often, even the smallest amount of damage to the engine, control surfaces, or even the pilot is enough to bring it down. But this is not the case with ballistic missiles, which is why ballistic missile defenses typically use hit-to-kill. This has no warhead, and the whole mast will smash directly into the incoming threat to make sure it's destroyed. We saw during the Gulf War that Patriot missiles using blast fragmentation warheads failed to destroy incoming Scud missiles fully. Another difference is the way that they maneuver. Air defense missiles shooting down aircraft in the atmosphere can utilize control surfaces to maneuver and adjust course, whereas ballistic missile defense occurring in space or even in the upper atmosphere can't do that. Instead, they require thrusters, similar to things you might see like SpaceX when they go to the International Space Station. There is no air up there to redirect and change course. So they need to have a complicated system of thrusters and a computer to calculate to make sure it hits its target. So obviously these two conflict. Having a whole system of thrusters and propellant tanks take up space and is heavy. And having large control surfaces like fins and equipment like hydraulics to move them is also heavy and takes up more space. So when you're going after one type of target, the other equipment is just dead weight you have to haul around, really limiting it from its full potential and full capability in terms of speed, maneuverability, and range. Now, it's possible that it can carry a few different types of missiles, one to shoot down ballistic missiles outside the atmosphere, and one to deal with air-breathing threats inside the atmosphere. The S-400, for example, can carry different missiles, so this is not unheard of. However, it really doesn't make sense to use this to shoot down things like aircraft, cruise missiles, etc. Again, these trucks are massive, much larger than the tail used for the S-400, and each only carry 2 missiles. It would make much more sense to incorporate it with an S-400, or even the new S-350, and allow them to carry out that role, and leave the much larger, more expensive, limited capacity S-500 tails to carry the larger anti-ballistic missiles. So it's almost certainly going to be geared toward shooting down ballistic missiles and hypersonic glide vehicles. The real benefit of this system is its mobility. ABM systems that are designed to shoot down long-range ballistic missiles have typically tended to be fixed. For example, the Soviet A-35 and A-135, and the US Safeguard program, and now even today with the newer GMD. Defending against short-range ballistic missiles is somewhat easier, as your interceptor doesn't need to be as large, and you don't need quite as powerful of a radar as the target isn't that far away. Examples of this would be things like the Soviet and now Russian S-300V series, and the US Patriot PAC-3. But in recent years, focus began to shift to that in-between area, between long and short-range ballistic missiles. Medium and intermediate-range ballistic missiles have become more popular recently. Things like the Chinese DF-21 and DF-21-6, numerous Iranian missiles, and others have really become extremely useful due to technology enabling extremely high levels of precision. In the past, anything beyond short-range ballistic missiles were so inaccurate that it really didn't make sense to use them for anything but carrying nuclear warheads. So, this rise has brought about a focus on new ways to defend against them. Today, we have things like the ship-launched SM-3, which is mobile as it's on a ship, and THAAD, another mobile system. Israel has also built one called Arrow 3 to deal with these longer-range ballistic missiles from Iran. And that brings us back to the S-500. Its size seems to imply that it's designed to deal with these medium and intermediate range missiles. It's also likely to have some ability to at least attempt shooting down intercontinental range ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, but nowhere near the capability of the much larger, purpose-made interceptors like GBI. GBI is large enough and carries enough fuel to get up, fly out, and meet incoming targets many hundreds of kilometers in space and several thousands of kilometers away. This 77N6-N's missile's exact specifications are not known, but estimates put it at a fraction of that of GBI, but somewhere longer than that of the missiles used for THAAD. So, if this S-500 were attempting to shoot down ICBMs, it would happen just before or during while it's re-entering the upper atmosphere. This area is very difficult to defend against for many reasons. First, that's when warheads from ICBMs are moving at their fastest speed in their entire flight, around 20 times the speed of sound. Also, the turbulence of the area, as you are too high to start using aerodynamic control surfaces to maneuver, but too low to not lose efficiency from using solely thrusters. Additionally, its shorter range means that it needs to be positioned extremely close to the impact point of an ICBM. And finally, it's right at the very end of the flight of the ICBM. So, if you miss, there is no time to fire another one and try again. This is the same issue THAAD runs into when trying to shoot down ICBMs. It can, but it would have a very difficult time doing so. So, despite the hype, it's likely not going to be very useful against aircraft, cruise missiles, or ICBMs. But where it'll be really useful is against hypersonic glide vehicles. These operate in that in-between area, between space with ballistic missiles and the atmosphere with cruise missiles. And again, it's a really difficult flight trajectory to defend against. Just how effective it is against these new threats is yet to be seen, but it's stated to have that ability. THAAD, again, a comparable system, is also looking at adding the capability as well, with the THAAD-ER. But, at least for now, Russia seems to have the only system that could handle these hypersonic glide weapons, which fly 3 or 4 times faster than hypersonic cruise missiles. But, this is all just off that one short video. We will have to wait for more to come out to further understand this system. But no, it's not really going to be any more of a threat to things like the F-22, F-35, and B-2 stealth aircraft than the S-400 already is, despite these absurd clickbait titles. But defending against hypersonic threats could be argued to be more valuable, as every nation right now seems to be racing to build them.